Okay, I know it looks bad, like with how long it's been since like the last upload and all that. I can explain. School. Anyways, that's all I got for an explanation. Now we can basically get on to what else I have to say for this before we start the video. Number one is like you guys already know what to do. Like if you don't like this video, be sure to just check out like some of my other videos in order to see if you really want to subscribe or not. Maybe like and maybe comment as well. Give me your opinions. Number two, the fact that you guys should probably check out Neptune. I will leave the link to their channel in the description since they did help out with this what if, and on top of that, they actually have their own what if that is going on, but well, they're actually looking for a co-writer of the sorts. So if you guys are interested, you guys can DM them on Discord. The link to their channel will be in the description, and I will also leave their Discord number as well. Basically their tags and all that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to really say. Let's get on with the video. Alright, let's start this story off. Basically, what ended up happening is that in this version of events, Izuku would have been pretty much the same kid up until the age of 4. All of a sudden, a voice would actually pop into his head. They would have ended up introducing themselves as Sage. Izuku's thinking process would start to operate on a higher level right then and there. Izuku would have started speaking in a more, I don't know how to quite say it, but more of a proper manner, you could say. It confused his parents a little bit. After all, a 4-year-old shouldn't be using some of this vocabulary, such big words for a 4-year-old. And then they remembered that, well, this could actually be Izuku's quirk awakening. It could be that Izuku's quirk was related to this sudden shift of vocabulary, so Izuku's mother and father would end up sending Izuku over to a doctor. They would go to the doctor, and afterwards, after Izuku would get his quirk evaluated, they would come back informing Izuku's parents of the fact that Izuku seemingly had some sort of intelligence quirk which allowed him to operate on a higher level than most kids his age. Well, most adults actually. Hisashi was a bit confused though. After all, he had fire breath and his wife had a weak telekinesis quirk. Where did this intelligence sort of quirk come into this? He was confused, and then he looked over to Inko for answers. Inko would just casually explain that some of her relatives actually had higher brain function quirks as well. A couple ended up becoming doctors and lawyers, but well, she ended up getting handed the bad hand, you could kind of say, in where she got a telekinesis quirk, but she never really trained with it that much, so it was pretty weak. Izuku would end up talking with the voice within his hand pretty often and used the faster processing of information to his advantage in the academic world. He would end up skipping through several grades and eventually move on to college. While in college, Izuku would end up learning how to fight in hand-to-hand combat. He would end up even start using a weapon as well. He would process things at a far faster level than most people. He would even have it to where his perception of time was seemingly slower for him. Basically, what a normal person would see. If it was like a projectile being thrown at a person, Izuku would see it basically 10 times slower, or even more. It would probably be going at the speed of a turtle for him. He would graduate with a major in forensics and a minor in quirk science. Overall, Izuku was growing to become a very intelligent child. During this time though, Sage would also end up evolving. It would evolve to Great Sage, operating on thousands of times faster than, well, the human mind, and by the time he ended up graduating college, it would become Raphael, considering how much he ended up pushing the quirk's limits. Whether it be through just the academic world, trying to study up about all of these different quirk genes, the history of quirks, forensics, all of that sort, or if he was trying to see what this quirk could actually remove in order to actually give him the chance to operate even better. For example, trying to shut off certain functions of his body in order to endure more, you could say. Izuku would still be interested in becoming a hero though after all of these years and after all of his accomplishments. Considering that he was still only 14 years old, of course he would still be interested, and he would find that he was still pretty young. He was young enough to actually enroll into his dream school, UA. After applying and getting ready for the physical half of the exam, Izuku would actually end up meeting back up with Bakugou after all of these years, around 6 years you could say. A quick analyzation and appraisal of Bakugou would let Izuku know that he wasn't slacking off with his training over the years at all. In terms of physical strength, Izuku would actually find that he and Bakugou were on a pretty similar level. Bakugou's quirk was a different story though. Bakugou's quirk gave him several advantages in combat. Izuku's quirk only had autopilot mode, which allowed the quirk to basically take control whenever needed. That and also slowed the perception of time for Izuku. Bakugou wouldn't necessarily recognize Izuku though, considering how long it had been since they last saw each other. On top of that, Izuku would have actually gained quite a bit of muscle mass over the years as well. I wouldn't say that he's necessarily jacked like a Baki character or anything, but he would definitely be on the more lean side, more that fighter physique, more comparable to somebody like Bruce Lee. And he would have also gotten a fade. Yes, I am giving Izuku a fade in this story. If you guys have any complaints, I don't care. Izuku would end up acing the written exam. The physical exam, Izuku wouldn't actually use autopilot mode for. Raphael would simply just jam the staff they brought along into the eyes of several robots. Raphael would hotwire and reprogram some of the robots too. This would allow them to actually hitch a ride on these reprogrammed robots and then aim their lasers at, well, all the rest of the targets, making it easier for Izuku to rack up points here. Izuku would manage to pass the entrance exam, and Nezu would be pretty interested in Izuku. On the first day, Izuku would end up meeting everyone, and they would all be sent to the field by Aizawa, who had mentioned that it was basically taking them way too long to actually quiet up. Aizawa would reveal the fact that they were going to be doing a quick examination test here, And when one of the students, Mina, mentioned how the test seemed to be fun, well, Aizawa didn't take that too kindly. What he ended up doing was mentioning how whoever got last place would end up getting expelled here. Throughout all of the exams, Izuku managed to do pretty average. Izuku would get around like 12th to 15th place here, and Manetta would actually be expelled. Everyone would find out about All Might teaching, and they would be excited to hear he'd be the one teaching them hero combat. Although they had to admit they were a bit nervous on whether or not he was going to also end up expelling some of them, considering what happened to one of the kids just the other day. Literally on the first day, they ended up getting expelled from UA just because they weren't able to compete as well as the others. So they were kind of afraid of what All Might would do, although All Might did confirm later on that he would not be doing such a thing. Izuku would be paired up with Ochako against Bakugou and Ida. Bakugou, knowing that Izuku was actually this kid now, not knowing that this was basically Izuku, he would actually be craving to fight him and show the loser his place. Izuku would have some elemental resistance armor and his staff on him. Izuku would fight like a maniac against Bakugou though, because of the fact that Raphael ended up turning off his pain receptors and fatigue over the years. Izuku would get brain mics, but he wouldn't really feel them. He would just power through, quickly adjusting to Bakugou's fighting style. He fought like a maniac, he fought like a madman throughout the whole battle, but even then, you could not necessarily say that he didn't fight calculated though. He did not fight like a rabid beast or anything. He fought like a madman, sure, but an intelligent madman. All of his strikes were calculated for some reason. If you were to actually slow down the video, do a screen by, not a screen by screen, but if you were to basically do a replay of what Izuku was doing, put it in slow motion or anything along those lines, you would end up realizing that Izuku was targeting sections of Bakugou's body that weren't covered by armor, and these sections were pretty much like the joints as well. Now, these pressure points Izuku was trying to hit throughout all of the battle, it would make perfect sense. Bakugou would realize that he is actually being pushed back, and he would end up trying to use a last resort, his gauntlets. He would actually reveal the true purpose of the gauntlets, being that they were storing up sweat this whole entire time, in order for Bakugou to release a super large explosion. All Might would tell Bakugou not to release the attack in fear that it might actually severely harm Izuku or possibly kill him. Bakugou would just laugh hearing that and just say that Izuku would not have to worry about the possibility of dying if, well, he just dodged, unlike a certain super character. But that's besides the point. Izuku would see what Bakugou was about to do, and he would quickly get into position in order to dodge as soon as possible. He was not about to actually try and risk taking that head on. He already suffered enough brain mics, and he knew that he would not be coming back from such a large scale attack from Bakugou. He knew his limits. He wasn't All Might to anybody. He was just pretty much like a regular human, just with a couple of different features that were taken away from him in order for him to compete better against the rest of people who had enhancement quirks, mutation quirks, transformation quirks, all of these sorts. Izuku would find a way to dodge. He would even have the staff as a sort of launching pad, and he would jump off of it right as Bakugou sent the explosion at him, the large-scale explosion. Izuku would end up colliding with Bakugou, and they would end up bumping heads. They would end up headbutting each other, and well, they would both be knocked out unconscious from such a collision. The villain team would win here though, since there was no distraction made by Izuku, which would have ended up allowing Uraraka to actually grab the bomb. Izuku would end up recovering though. Once both Izuku and Bakugou recovered back at Recovery Girl's office, Bakugou would distance himself while Izuku would get acquainted with everyone. Izuku would reveal the fact that he actually has a degree in forensics, and well, and people would actually be quite interested. They would begin to question if he was really 15, especially when he started showing pictures of the diploma. Aizawa would confirm it though. Choco would realize that if she actually became good friends with this guy, there was a good chance that he would become a super successful hero in the future, if not probably a very good businessman. He would probably be one of the more richer people in Japan, and he could probably give them some sort of way out of poverty. So she would try and get all buddy with him. Ochako would try and get all buddy with Izuku from pretty early on. Hiroshima would find that Izuku was pretty cool and manly for actually learning martial arts while in college, especially considering the fact that his quirk didn't necessarily give him that many physical advantages, so he had to work with what he had. He honestly had to give Izuku props for that. He applauded him, and he found that to be something that would make Izuku to be probably even more manlier than him. At least he had a hardening quirk, which, well, hardened his skin. Izuku didn't even have that. But he was still able to compete against somebody like Bakugou throughout that whole match. Ida would respect Izuku for reaching so high in that educational bracket. He saw education as very valuable. Kaminari would try to mooch off of Izuku, realizing that girls probably liked smart guys and that Izuku could probably be a good wingman for him in the future. Momo would actually be interested in Izuku purely from an intellectual standpoint, seeing that there was actually a good chance he could actually compete with her intelligence. Honestly, for all she knew, he could probably even surpass her in intelligence if what he was saying was really true. Izuku and the rest of Class 1A would end up voting for a class president the next day, and Izuku would win due to his intelligence here. Momo would end up getting vice rep. The cafeteria scene remains pretty similar to in canon, except for the part with Ochako. Ochako would admit that, yeah, she actually did vote for Izuku, and she would try and make it even more personal. Just try and butter up Izuku more in order to get closer to him. Izuku would not actually give him the role of class rep to either here though. While on the bus ride to the USJ, people would begin to question what Izuku's quirk actually was, what exactly it could do, since it was kind of hard to gauge what it could do before. Like, yeah, they get that it's some sort of super intelligence quirk, but what exactly does it do? Is it just that it gives some super intelligence and that's it, or like are there other features to the quirk? Is there a way to activate the quirk? Is there a way to make yourself even smarter? Does your intelligence multiply, or is it stagnant in some sort of area, or what? That's basically a lot to the questions that people were having. Izuku would just explain that it's a sort of AI system, you could say. Basically, imagine you have a second brain and it's processing everything at a much faster rate than the average human. If he could give some sort of estimate, he would probably say that it's pretty up there in the multiplication side. You could say that he's processing everything at like maybe 1,000,000 times the speed of somebody. Saying like you're the average human, you can process things at an average speed. He's probably able to process everything at like 1,000,000 times faster than you could ever. People would think that Izuku was bluffing, just overhyping his quirk, but Izuku wasn't necessarily bluffing. People knew that Izuku was intelligent, but it was hard to believe that Izuku's quirk could actually boost his thought processing to such an extent. Izuku would just wave it off though, and they would go to their USJ. As soon as they made it through the doors though, Izuku would get a bad feeling. Once the villains began to appear, Izuku would turn right back around and make a run for it. He would begin to flee the scene in order to get back up from the UA teachers. Kuroguri wouldn't have been able to catch Izuku in time here, and Shigaraki would become irritated before demanding for Kuroguri to get rid of as many of these brats as possible before the rest of the UA staff joined. And well, basically the operation would have just been a done deal from there on, because there's no way they would be able to take on that many pro heroes all at once, especially if All Might was going to be part of that staff as well. So may as well just try and go down with a bang before they had to escape. And that's how I'm going to be ending part 1, people. It is your boy KinTinyX signing out. You guys already know the deal. If you like the video, just like it, basically. Like, maybe leave a comment as well talking about how you like the video, what you want to see in future parts. Maybe also like if you've watched my content for a little while now, maybe subscribe and click the notification bell. If this is your first video, well, basically, my name is KinTinyX. I am your local narcissist, and well, you guys should definitely check out more of my content, because if you like this video, you may like some more of my videos. Who knows? It's your boy KinTinyX signing out.